Welcome back to Inside the 12. It is time to dive into the college football playoff rankings and all the hot news around college football, specifically the Big 12. So we welcome in now college football writer for CBS, Shehan Jeyarajah, who covers it all. But this morning, he's going back to his Big 12 roots, and he's talking about the Big 12. Tuesday night, right, into Wednesday morning, we're going back a little bit. If you're Brett Yormark and you wake up, you see two teams in that bracket, right, and you've got one banging on the door in Utah, it's got to be a good morning for Brett Yormark when he wakes up and sees that.
No doubt about it. And I actually think that the Utah piece might be the most important one on the board because both of the teams that are ranked ahead of them have a head-to-head win. So this gives you almost a floor for your Big 12 teams. I mean, I don't think that Texas Tech or BYU, regardless of who loses this weekend, has any chance of falling below, let's say, number 12 or 13 in the rankings. That's a great place to be. I mean, look, you obviously have an ACC team and a group of 5 team that will come from outside of that top 12 and make the field. But I think that the league is in tremendous position right now to contend for multiple bids into the college football playoff.
Shehan, there's a number of matchups and head-to-heads as we get into the month of November. But if we asked you to look into your crystal ball with all of these one-loss and two-loss teams, who do you think ends up in Arlington for the Big 12 championship?
I'm not going to overthink it. I think that we do get a rematch of this weekend, Texas Tech versus BYU. I think that these are the two best teams in the Big 12. And the other piece of it as well is while Utah might be third, both of those teams have a head-to-head victory over Utah. That's a huge advantage heading down the stretch. Let's go back to the 2024 season. Tiebreakers ended up being ultra important when it came to making it to Arlington, and whether they are 1 or 2 loss teams, I think that having that little piece is going to prove critical when it comes to making that final game.
Is there any little bit of chaos you see that could possibly develop that could throw this plan off right now, as we do seem headed down the tracks? As you mentioned, you don't want to overthink it, but if there's a chaotic piece that could play in and shake this thing up, what is it?
Well, I mean, look, here's the reality, right, is that there's a lot of teams who are obviously in the 1 to 2 loss range of the Big 12 race. A lot of these teams play each other down the stretch. I'm looking at a team like TCU that I think is a pretty high quality team. They play multiple contenders down the stretch. It's easily possible that BYU drops a game somewhere that they shouldn't, that Texas Tech drops a second game. And suddenly if that happens and we're talking about multiple teams at 2 losses vying for number 2, all bets are off. Houston gets back into the mix. TCU gets back into the mix. Utah gets back into the mix. So there's plenty left that has to happen, and these top 3 teams especially really need to take care of business to give themselves a chance.
Well, it's never helpful to talk about coaches and openings right in early November. We want to sink our teeth into the football. But while we got somebody like you, a resource, I want to hear what's going on with Oklahoma State and their coaching search. Have you heard any early developments? Having a lot of time to maybe sort it out, being at the front of the line when you see a lot of these other openings kind of coming together recently.
Well, I'm glad that you pointed that out because there are going to be numerous openings in college football this year, including, by the way, we already have 3 in the SEC. But I think that kind of the minor advantage that Oklahoma State has is that it's kind of in its own place, right? Like, you're not necessarily competing. It's actually 4 SEC teams, by the way, with Auburn opening. But you're not necessarily competing for all of the same candidates with those schools. Maybe with Arkansas you overlap a little bit, but you're not competing with Penn State for candidates. You get to be first in line to a certain type of candidate, maybe one who has a Big 12 background, maybe one who's coming from the state of Texas. And for that reason, and by the way, he has a great quarterback to come along with him, I think that Eric Morris at North Texas is an easy first call for Oklahoma State to make. Only a couple hours down the road in Denton, Texas. They are 8-1 at this point, just beat Navy last weekend. They are right in the thick of the college football playoff and American Conference race. I think that they would be a tremendous addition to Oklahoma State, and he'd be able to bring over his quarterback, Drew Mestemaker, who just threw for over 600 yards 2 weeks ago. So I think that would be my obvious first call, but there's a lot of different directions that they could choose to go. And the fact that they're here early means, again, that they're at the front of the line.
Shehan, to go back to Lubbock with this matchup, top 10 matchup, BYU and Texas Tech. College game day will be there. Really all the eyes of the sport to start the day will be on this matchup. Can you frame for us just how important this game is, not just for this week and for the college football playoff, but for the league as a whole?
Well, let's go back to 2008 because that was the last time that Texas Tech hosted College Game Day. But while obviously that's one big piece, I think that just sets the tone for what this game means to the city of Lubbock. When you look at Texas Tech so far this year, they played a lot of big games, but very few of them have actually been at home. Their only big game so far was their homecoming game against Kansas. There is so much pent-up energy in the city of Lubbock and in West Texas that's ready for their close-up, and they understand that this game against BYU is going to be one of the biggest games in the history of Texas Tech University. There are fans that have been lining up since Sunday night to get into that game that are going to be there for 6 full days. You have, of course, all the big shows coming down. I will also be there. You know, I think that adds a little bit of I think that adds a little bit to the game. But I think that also when you look at it from BYU's perspective, this is a huge prove-it spot for them as well. They're undefeated, but they're the last of the undefeateds in the power conferences right now. They're number 7 behind some of those other teams and behind, by the way, SEC teams that have 1 loss. If you win this game and if you win it convincingly in Lubbock, you suddenly jump into the echelon of competing for a bye in the college football playoff, of being a top 4 or a top 3 type of team. So huge implications for both these programs, not just for this weekend and this season, but also for their positioning heading forward.
You got a pick for the game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Texas Tech. We talk about not overthinking it. I think that this defensive line is just absolutely unbelievable. David Bailey, Romello Height, 2 of the best pass rushers in all of college football. The big question for me is going to be which offense comes out with some wrinkles, because I think you did see with Texas Tech the past couple of weeks, especially with Baron Morton limited, they've been a little inconsistent offensively, and BYU is the kind of defense that can put that away. But I think that Texas Tech's defense rolls. I think that they're ultimately able to create some explosive plays. I expect it to be a lower scoring game than expected, maybe something like 21-14, but I do think that Texas Tech emerges victorious.
I love this dude. He's a sicko, dude. He's all about it. Shehan Jeyarajah, check him out. Everywhere you can find college football news, you will find national football writer for CBS Sports, Shehan Jeyarajah. Look forward to seeing your stuff from Lubbock this weekend, man. Go ahead. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, that's Shehan Jeyarajah. When we come back, we got another game breaker, Jeff Sims. Woo, he is lighting it up. Taylor's taking us inside the quarterback club with the backup, who is obviously ready for his close-up, too.